What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about Destiny 2 and kind of list some of the ideas I have, some of the things that stand out to me that aren't currently in Destiny. This isn't really a video about fix your game Bungie necessarily. I'm not a game developer, I don't claim to have any kind of knowledge about how this stuff works. What I'm really doing in this video is listing things, like I said, that I think would be good to see in the game. And more than anything, I want to focus on kind of the progression element of Destiny. That's where I feel that we're lacking right now. So I wanted to have a conversation about things we may see in the future. This isn't a rant or anything like that. Firstly, we have random weapon rolls, or the lack of random weapon rolls. Now this is something that Bungie do not plan on changing right now. They've put a lot of focus into the game based on having fixed and curated weapon perks. So I'm not just going to sit here and say bring random rolls back or that's the end. Now something for me that's really missing on weapons are meaningful weapon mods. Now something I feel that would make weapons more interesting and add some progression would be a mod slot where you could have a selection of 5 possible perks. Essentially it would be like a second trait for the weapon. This could also be a slot that actually replaces the trait on the weapon, but it would be really cool if you could pick up an item from the gunsmith which activates a perk mod node on the weapon, and then to have that node behave like a progressible node, sort of like the Eidolon ally for the Necrochasm quest in Destiny 1, you know, get X amount of headshots and it would unlock Outlaw. That's just an example, but you could have different objectives for each of the 5 possible perks. Even if it was 2 or 3 possibilities, it would be better than what we have now, and you could slowly unlock all of those possibilities for the weapon if you wanted to, and then actually switch between them. If this was possible, you could keep it within the curated system, you know, the possible traits you could roll would be kind of selected and tested beforehand, it wouldn't be completely random. Sure, it would mean a lot more work for Bungie, but that's already kind of the case with this system. They're going to have to re-roll sets of weapons. We can't see the same stuff over and over again, and I think this is a potential way to alleviate that. The next thing that we're really missing are heroic strike playlists as well as strike specific loot. So they need to bring back strike modifiers, make a lot more of them than what we currently have in the game. Modifiers for cooldowns, how quickly you earn supers or grenades, how strong certain damage types are. The Nightfall we had for the Pyramidion a couple of weeks ago had Daybreak, where everything recharges much quicker, and it was the most fun strike I've played in Destiny 2, so we need that in a playlist. We also need strike specific loot, exactly the same as what we saw in Destiny 1. We need armor pieces, exclusive weapons to come out of strikes, and these need to be themed around the strike, the enemy type itself. But moving on, we need some PvP progression, and this is actually going to lead into another point that I have about vendors in general, but I feel like some kind of competitive progression for PvP, you know, whether it's a rating or whatever, is something that really should be very strongly thought about in Destiny 2, and that could provide stuff you can feasibly work towards. But also this leads in, like I said, to some stuff I have about vendors. So there's a lot of conversation about the token system, how exciting vendors are right now and actually unlocking loot from them, and I feel like there's a big missed opportunity right now in terms of progression for individual vendors. So we need to see vendor ranks in the game initially for Crucible, Vanguard, Future Warcall, all of the factions, but I think more importantly we need progression thresholds for every single vendor in the game, something that allows players to work towards something specific and potentially choose a specific reward at a certain point. So I feel like there should be progression milestones for vendors. An example of this would be, you know, hit rank 10 with a vendor and you'll get an exclusive emblem which increases reputation. So for example, it would cost you 5 less tokens to rank up. But then at rank 12 you could offer a faction aura. So once you've actually hit rank 12 you would unlock the aura, and then each week you could unlock the aura again by leveling up twice in that faction, for example. And this would really just be a little side bonus to what you would get after that point. So at rank 15 they could actually have an exotic sparrow, so an exclusive Crucible exotic sparrow, Dead Orbit exotic sparrow, and you'd have a chance to earn it when you hit rank 15, but if you don't earn it you would get a 10% increase in the chance of actually having that item drop every single time you level up. So essentially after that rank, you know, once you hit rank 13 you've got a high chance, 14 even higher, 15 even higher. You keep some of the RNG, but you actually kind of have a boon that works in the favor of the player, so the longer they're unlucky, the more likely they are to get lucky. But this sits in a world where there are other things you can be working for at the same time. So at rank 20, I think it would be fantastic to see Adept status for a given faction. And they can introduce Adept keys for each of the vendors, and you could actually turn in, you know, 10 or 20 normal tokens to get one Adept key, which would allow you to buy a piece of Adept gear for the Crucible, for example. And these Adept pieces of gear could just simply have ornaments on them, kind of like what we saw with the Trials gear in D1. They could have an additional intrinsic bonus potentially. They definitely need to be visually different and suggest that that player has put time into that specific thing. But I feel like you guys probably understand what I'm saying. You'll be able to complete activities to unlock prestigious versions of stuff for a specific faction. And then to incentivize that players continue to do this stuff, you know, at rank 25, you'd have a chance to earn an exotic faction ship. And again, every rank where you don't get the ship could increase your drop chance by 20% in this case, as opposed to 10, because obviously you'd be a much higher level, which would mean that you'd have a much higher chance of getting that thing. The exact ins and outs of this can vary, but I think the important thing is that there needs to actually be progression, stuff that you can continuously work towards, even if it's over a very long period of time. Now, I've got a couple of other ideas of things that could be in the game that could also help you progress towards these things, and this could help players who don't have as much time to actually work towards some of those longer term things as well and feel like they're getting somewhere. So I think patrol high value targets would be a really cool idea. It's kind of something that they suggested would happen with flashpoints, but it's not really very fleshed out. You know, there's an additional boss who turns up at a public event who gives you a couple of tokens. Why not turn those bosses into weekly high value targets? So Cade could have a high value target for the week. It would have 3 stages of tracking a boss in a non-flashpoint patrol location. So, you know, kind of 3 mini objectives where you slowly work your way towards a boss, and once you actually find and kill the boss, you'd receive an item that you could take back to Cade, and he would grant you an Adept key for the faction of your choosing, or potentially a reputation bundle or something like that. So if you were working towards New Monarchy, for example, even if you aren't currently at the level where you can receive Adept gear, you'd be able to get 1 piece a week by completing this other activity. And I feel like having something like this would mean that, you know, those hardcore players that have the time can grind up to rank 20 in a faction or whatever, but for the players who don't have as much time, who would eventually get there anyway, they can still earn one of these things per week. So it's that continuous carrot on the stick. Will give you a little bit, but when you get here, you have a chance to earn much more of this stuff. I feel like there are ways to keep different types of players happy, and there's been a bit of a fear from Bungie from what I'm seeing. You know, look at the Prestige Nightfall, look at the Prestige Raid and what we know about those rewards. It feels like if something is very, very difficult to do and there's going to be a margin of the player base who actually does it, they're kind of not rewarding it very highly because they don't want that to alienate people who can't do it. And there are absolutely ways to kind of drip feed the content to different types of players based on whatever it is they enjoy doing or how much time they actually have. One idea I think could be really interesting would be returning Adept exotic weapons. So Bungie could actually take a selection of the most popular weapons and then create exotic variants of them, and then each and every week have Banshee offer a featured weapon for that week. So Banshee has the Nameless Midnight, for example, and that weapon could come with a quest to unlock an Adept version. So it could have 3 stages, for example, that encourage different types of activities. You know, kill Cabal in Patrol, get headshots inside of Strike playlists, defeat Guardians in the Crucible, and this should be something that takes a little bit of investment over the course of a week, but you would be able to unlock an exotic Nameless Midnight that maybe comes with an additional intrinsic perk. Now I know to some that may seem kind of boring, like what's the point in having an exotic version, and I completely understand that, but if you look back to Age of Triumph, we had, you know, exotic Fatebringer. There wasn't necessarily a huge reason to use that in a whole bunch of activities, but it's just the kind of prestige of actually having the weapon. Of course they could do other visual things there as well, but it's something that wouldn't take, you know, forever for Bungie to do, that they could actually implement. I also think we could see artifacts return like the ones we saw in Rise of Iron that could add more variety and customization to your class and your kind of setup at a given time. And also I would like to see hidden exotic quests, or just hidden quests in general, not necessarily huge things, but just stuff that sparks people's interest and makes them want to go on a hunt. I feel like right now the biggest thing that Destiny 2 is missing is that chase, that longer term drive towards something. And I understand why some of that stuff isn't here right now. Obviously it's a vanilla game. Bungie are also trying to make sure they capture a new audience for this game without scaring people off, and a lot of veteran players are kind of frustrated about this now. Honestly though, I don't think it's a problem. I think what the problem is Bungie being able to actually deliver the content to all types of players. That's the biggest issue right now. I don't believe it has to be as black and white quite as it is. I think with, you know, slightly more depthy systems, they can achieve a much better endgame and progression system for a lot of players. So those are just a few things that are on my list, guys, some of the real standout stuff. Obviously this would be on top of other fixes, balance tuning and quality of life stuff for the game. There's a lot of talk about new content and stuff like that, but I also feel like there's a lot of reasons that we need to have to play content we already have in the game. So I'll be curious to hear what you guys think down below. If you have enjoyed the video though, a like is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more Destiny 2 content going forward, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. But for now, you guys have an awesome day.